see, we're moving along a little bit behind schedule, but Courtney's doing better than last week. Next coming up is Ron Bolton. Ron's actually going to be the president-elect. He will take off over in January. Ron's going to be talking about bee pests. You know, we're dealing with bees, and bees have their pests also, so we have to get that going. If you want to go up to, okay.
Thank you. I know you're tired of sitting. Stand up, stretch your legs.
We did all the shortcuts.
I think they scheduled this for after lunch because we've done this before lunch. Most of you probably wouldn't have come back. And I'm going to use this because if I get to talking, I'm worse than Barbara. I will never shut up. So this is going to keep me in line, I hope. So anyway, so bee pests are the dark side of beekeeping, unfortunately. I'm not going to really cover diseases. We're going to concentrate on the pests this time. But I will venture to say that you're probably here because of this. You didn't know it. You're here. You're probably, most of you are here because of the results of this. The major losses of bees that you're hearing about. So thank you for being here. If you keep bees, you're going to have pests. Enough said on that. You're also going to have frustration, expense, and possibly loss of all your bees. See, I told you you were going to leave. I hope it don't stop you from keeping them, though. Because it's for people like you that the awareness is being raised of what's going on with our bees. So thank you for being here. Before I get into it, the first thing I want to do is give a disclaimer. Chemicals in the hive. What I really want to say is I'm not going to recommend it. It's up to you. If you want chemicals in your hive, it's entirely up to you. I'm not going to recommend or even encourage you to use them. However, be aware that if you don't, you may lose your bees. It's one of those tough love situations, all right? So, some are also hazardous to your bees and you. They can contaminate your honey and your wax. Follow the directions to the letter, please. Careful if you get experimented. You are dealing with a food product here. Your honey and your wax, what you're going to eat, your family, or you may sell. Be careful with what you're dealing with. Think about what you're doing before you do it. Okay? So, we're going to jump right into the bee's worst enemy, which is the mites. There's two types of mites, Varroa mites and Tracheal mites. Your book is very good, very detailed, covers both of them. It's up there? Okay. I'm praying this is working, so I'm not looking. If you have mites, if you have bees, as I said earlier, if you have bees, you have pests. If you have bees, you have mites. No question about it. The big thing is how many. That's what you have to watch for. The Varroa mite is a brown, crab-like looking tick. Functions just like a tick. It's about 2 millimeters in size. Proportionally, it would be like you walking around with a monkey on your back, a small monkey on your back all the time. It's that much stress to the bee. They also, like a tick, they're biting the bee, they're feeding on the, so to speak, blood of the bee, sucking the juices, weakening the bee, and as ticks do, they're introducing viruses and diseases. I think Mike talked a little bit about this earlier this morning, that the mites are tied to the life cycle, the brooding cycle, I get this right in a minute, of the mite is tied to the life cycle of the honeybee. What happens is a mite will drop off an adult bee in the brood area on a young larva. She'll bury down inside there. It's a female mite. She'll hide. Larva will grow enough to be capped over. She'll lay one male egg and a number of female eggs. They'll hatch out while that bee is pupating in that capped cell. Start feeding on that pupating bee. They will actually grow to adulthood while still in there and mate. Continue to feed on the bee, weaken the bee, also introducing some problems to the bee itself. And when the bee hatches out, so to speak, out of its cell, the female mites come out with that bee as adults. They then attach to other bees and right around the hive, growing, getting stronger until they're ready now to lay eggs and follow in and drop off in another cell and start the process all over again. So it's only the females that come out. Obviously, because of all the brood that you just heard about that's in the spring, and the bee population exploding through April and May into June, that's your time your mites have lots of access to lots of brood, and their levels are going to raise. They also like the drones. Anybody got any idea why? Longer time in the cell. Remember, the drone is the one that stays in the cell. She's got more time to lay more eggs to breed more young. So drone cells are especially attractive to the Varroa Mite. And thus the population can explode, and that's the problem with Varroa Mites. Your trick is keeping the numbers down. And that's where integrated pest management comes in. Notice I didn't say chemicals, I said integrated pest management, or IPM for short. That involves a number of different steps. Your book covers this really well. Go through your book. To date, there is no one thing or treatment that you can do to your bees that's going to 100% work 100% of the time dealing with mites. If you decide to use chemicals, you don't want to just apply them because you saw a few mites or as a preventive maintenance thing. Mites have a nasty habit of developing a resistance to chemicals, as a lot of our pests have over the years. That's why we keep seeing pesticides change. So you want to do it as part of IPM, as part of a rotational type thing, or whatever you decide you want to do. The important part of IPM is the very top one there, is monitoring how many you have, and when you're reaching a threshold of danger that you really need to take maybe extra action. And that's the part I want to cover with you more, a little more detail, because that's the important part of this. You make your decisions as to what you want to use and what methods you want to use, and if you want to use chemicals. But the important part is knowing when your bees are getting ready to get in trouble. Because you need to take action immediately, or something's going to happen. Two common methods. We've already seen one of these, talked about a couple of times, the sticky board. Sticky board is a screen bottom board, has that plastic corrugated piece that slides underneath. You coat it with a thin film of vegetable oil. Sometimes it's better to spray it with a little pan and mix the two together so it's spread a little more easily, but you just want a real thin film of vegetable oil. The mites will fall through the screen, get trapped on there. Your idea is, and I'll put your numbers up here, your idea is you want to see what the mite count fall is over a 24 period time. You might want to do this every other week or once a week, especially during the spring, later summer when the populations are really up. See how your mite levels are building. The pro of this, it's easy to do. You don't have to open the hive, you don't have to disturb the bees. You slide it in, you're doing it from the back. That doesn't come in from the front, so you're not sitting there in the front, the bees are smacking you in the face. So it slides in from the back, it's easy to do. The con of doing that is it's not necessarily accurate. You're dependent on mites to fall. If you've got one of the strains of bees that's breeded specially for hygienics, and they're good at shedding the mites off, they may not have many mites on the bees. Most of them are on the board. But you're saying, oh, I need to treat. I got 50 mites on the board. It ain't on the bees. You're wasting your time, So it's not always reliable, but it's still a good, easy, safe way to see what's going on. If you're seeing a lot of mites, then you maybe need to look inside and see what's going on inside a little bit, okay? The second best, we've already talked about this, is the sugar roll. Where you get some number 8 screen wire, and you make a lid for a mason jar, you put about 200 or 300 bees in there, and you dump in the powdered sugar, you roll them around, sit it down a little bit, do a couple other things looking around in your hive, and keep rolling it over for about a period of about 10 minutes is what they really recommend to really get the opportunity for the mites to fall off the bee. Then, as Barbara said, you take your pan of water, nice light colored bottom is easier, you shake it out, you can count the mites on top. Here's your levels you want to watch for. You start seeing those levels, you're starting to have problems. You're not hurting your bees. You can open the jar back out. They're all white, but you can dump them out, and they'll clean themselves off and fly back home. You're not killing your bees in doing this. So it's a little more accurate. because it's forcing mites to fall off, and you get a good idea. What you're trying to figure out is your ratio per 100 bees. It's a good YouTube video. Tell you, I wrote that down there. There's also, if you just search on YouTube for sugar bowl test, there's nice videos of how to do this. Much better than I can try to explain it to you, so please look there. Pro, I said, is better results. The con is you have to open the hive to do this, to gather the bees. And needless to say, you do this, you're going to take off some bees. So it's not always fun to do this, but it gives you better results. So, tracheal mites. These are microscopic little boogers. You can't see them. They breathe in the trachea. I know Mike said the bees actually breathe through their exoskeleton, but they actually have a trachea that oxygen is kind of, I really can't explain the total biology, but it's sort of the way that they finally absorb that oxygen and it gets into their body. These mites get in there, start causing scar tissues. They bite through the sides to, again, suck the blood of the bees. They start limiting the oxygen transfer. They weaken the bees. You basically can compare it to COPD. And then along with it, the bacteria and the viruses again. Like I said, these are hard to detect. One symptom might be to watch for bees walking around on the outside of the hive that are too weak to fly. You try to disturb them, they won't fly. They just kind of fall off. Tracheal mites are also responsible for your heavy winter losses because they finally just get weak during the winter and just keep gradually falling off at a higher rate. Problem is, you're in the middle of the winter and the bees are starting to fall off, you really can't tell it, you can't do anything about it anyway, so it's too late. So that's the trick of tracheal mites. The only way to know that you have tracheal mites is dissection and doing under a microscope. And I don't know about you, but I had a hard enough time with that frog in high school biology class. And you don't find a microscope just laying around in the average garage. So the other way you can tell 100% is to send them off for testing. Your treatments. Your chemical treatment is menthol crystals. Cannot be put on the hive when there's a honey flow on and you're expecting to have honey that you're going to eat. It contaminates the honey. So it's a good fall. If you're going to use it, it's good for the fall. Get the mites out so you don't have your winter losses. Maybe real early in the spring before things start blooming. Once things start blooming, you can't have that in the hive. And I mark my boxes, if I use it, I don't always use these things either. I mark my boxes with an X or something so that I know that that wax has been subjected to those menthol crystals. Because that wax gets impregnated with it. And I make sure I don't reuse that wax for honey that I'm eating. So I mark those boxes and keep those frames in those boxes, or mark the frames if you go transfer them. You got to be careful with this stuff. The other option is grease patties. You take like Crisco, you mix it up with sugar, and make a real thick patty enough that it kind of stays like a, maybe like a salmon cake. Like that texture, okay? You put that on there. The bees go after the sugar, and as they do that, they ingest some of the grease, Tracheal mites have a way of detecting young bees. They don't know why exactly that I've read anywhere, but they know to go for the younger bees, probably because that allows them to produce more, and they got the longer lifespan there to deal with on the younger bee. The grease patties the grease that they ingest seems to block that to the mite. They cannot detect the age of the bee as much, and so they tend to stay with the older bee and wind up dying with the bee, instead of being able to reproduce as much, have enough time to reproduce, and get up and get to the other younger bees, because they need that time inside the bee. So that's what it happens. It's, what did I do here? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There you go. So we did that. I must have hit a bump twice. Tracheal mites. I'm sorry. That's what I get for not looking. What was I going to say about that? Your grease patties are not hazardous. It's still another substance. If you're going organic, I don't know whether that's approved organically, but you don't have to worry about it being a poison in the hive. It can be used at any time. Something you might want to think about on those. So,
Where do you put the patty?
just on the top of the frames, just lay them, especially over primarily over the brood area, because what's in the brood area primarily? Your nurse bees, your young bees. So you want those to get into the sugar. So you might want to take your other supers off and maybe just got honey in them or something like that and put it over top of the frames that have the brood, most of your young bees. You just lay it in there, flatten it out good, they'll work on it. You don't have to worry about ever taking it out. Why have I got wax on my gee? Is there wax in a beehive? So anyway, so any questions on mites? I'm going to stop at this point and kind of give you a break. Anything you want to ask? Anything I've said at this point in time? Anybody want to run out the door? All right, picture you've already seen. Small hive beetles. These beetles are a pain in the They're black. One disadvantage, I'll go back to one thing. Screen bottom boards are great for counting. There is a disadvantage to screen bottom boards. They go through the screens. They're small enough to fit through. And so you've got a wide open bottom that all the beetles that want to can just run in and out of the hive all they want. If the bee gets after them, they just run through the screen where the bee can't get to them. As soon as the bee walks away, back in the hive again. So that is the disadvantage to screen bottom boards. So just something to think about. If you got hive beetles real bad, you may have to consider what you're doing on your bottom board. It's unfortunate we have to make these decisions. These little guys are about 5 to 7 millimeters long. They especially like to hang around the back of the hive on the bottom board. You'll see them up real heavy around that inner cover. It's laying there that's underneath your top cover. You take your top cover off, and the hive beetles running all around everywhere. Smack everyone you can get with your hive tool. Frame rest, where the frames rest on the side of the box where that lip is. There's a lot of places they can slip in under there. They lay their eggs in crevices that they can find in the hive. The larvae get in and feed on the honey and the pollen. And when they defecate, it turns into a slime, which causes the honey to ferment. There's one hiding in the frame. Right there, if you're looking at the top of the box, there's one hiding right there. It turns into a nasty mess. They don't do anything to the bees themselves. It just starts fermenting, bubbling. The bees, it gets bad enough, the bees will say, "We're out of here," and they'll leave. You can have it. A strong hive can keep the population down. And that's important. You've heard that said over and over again today. Keep your hive strong, your population's up. Do everything you can to manage that. The bees will manage these guys pretty good on their own if it's a big, strong hive. The larva will crawl out of the front of the hive when it's old enough. They burrow in the ground, pupate there, hatch out as beetles, looking for another place to go. As far as treatments, besides squashing all you can see, the only 2 chemical treatments for these guys, one is called Checkmate. I guess it's in your book as well. That's used in the hive to kill the beetles. It also works on Varroa Mite. And the other is Guard Star, which is only used outside of the hive as a soil drench. It's highly toxic to both you and the bees. If the bees get in it, they're dead. If you don't use gloves, you're going to have problems. It's highly toxic. So that's to kill the larva that's buried down in the soil. Unfortunately, the beetles also lay eggs on trees because the larvae also like to eat tree sap. So you got all the trees around, you got all these larvae eating that. They burrow in the ground around the trees. When they hatch out as beetles, they can fly up to 2 miles. You got to soil drench a big area to make much of a difference. I'd really consider strongly before you can start drenching your soil with this highly toxic stuff. But if you got a bad enough infestation and you're seeing things hatching around your hive, it may be something you want to consider. Fortunately, by nature, the beetles like to hide. You pull that lid off the top, them guys are scampering everywhere trying to hide. It's hard to kill them fast enough because they're running and hiding out of something, or they'll fly off real quick. So there are traps available. There's bunches of traps. I put 3 here for you. That one goes between the frames. It just hangs down in between the frames. This one goes on the front and tries to catch them as they're coming in. There's a little slit right, where's my thing? There's a little slit, you can't see it very well, but it's right there. The bees go in here. There's a little fine opening right here. And the beetles will try to run, they'll try to dodge a bee. Instead of fighting the guard bees at the front, they'll run into that little slit. That little thing right there is a container of oil. They fall plump down in the oil, they're screened inside, they can't get into the hive. And that will catch a lot of beetles. You catch them before they get in the hive. But you can't have screen bottom boards on if you're using that, because they'll just go around that and go underneath. So, you got limits. These are expensive. These are expensive. It's a special type of bottom board that has a whole tray that goes under the screen. You put oil in it. All of these, you notice, contain oil. They don't mix. You spill oil anywhere in there, you didn't kill bees. You got to be careful. Those guys are really your problem ones because they're inside the hive. You pull a frame out and that guy falls over and dumps all the oil out. The bees run in there. The beetles run in the top and fall in the oil as the bees chase them. You got to be careful with that, using those traps. But you're not putting anything other than oil in the hives. It's not a chemical that you got to worry about. It's not being, the bees are not touching it as long as you don't spill it. The traps do work to a certain extent. What did I have happening? Okay, there's a new type of idea that just came out, and I'm going to cover this one with you because it seems to be working quite well. It was discovered kind of late in the summer as a trap. That don't look like a trap. It's not like something you use in the kitchen. It's a normal, everyday, reusable kitchen wipe. Watch this warning. You don't want those. You don't want any chemicals. You want the plain one. Take one sheet, you lay it crossways across the top of the frames, not lengthways, but crossways, because the beetles will definitely hide underneath. If you cover those in where they like on the end bars right there on the rest, if you cover that with the thing, the beetles will hide under there and the bees can't get to them. Put it crossways. Bees do two things to something foreign in the hive. They'll cover it with a propolis, which we've already talked about, they glue everything down, or they'll try to tear it apart and haul it out the front of the hive. What was found with these was that they will tend to propolize these. And in the process, they're kind of pulling the fibers apart to do so. And when a beetle runs underneath or over across the top, they get tangled in it. And they discovered this summer that you might leave that in for a week and open it up and be able to take 100 beetles out or more at a time. Great trap, dirt cheap. So dirt cheap and so good that if you try to go to any stores around North Richmond right now, because I know Paul did, you can't find any of these right now. Because the beekeepers are buying them out. The other interesting thing that was discovered late in the summer was when the guy that was testing these went back in, they didn't have any Scotch Brites, but they had the Clorox version, same thing. But when he put it in the hive, the bees didn't propolize it. They tore it up and drug it out. They didn't like the Clorox for some reason. So they didn't catch any beetles with those. So now he's hunting around looking for Scotch Brites. So I don't know about any other brands because we hit the end of the summer. We don't know what's going to go on that. But all I can tell you is next spring, when the word gets out that a shipment of Scotch Whites came in, beekeepers. So, any questions on the hive bee? Y'all are asleep. Got it.
Or that same Scotch Brite pads you can get like in an automotive store?
Not a pad, it's just a cloth. It's a paper cloth type of white. More of a paper cloth, but it's just a white. Not the pads.
There's something unique.
Huh?
Let me just say that this is the most incredible thing we've seen. For 5 years, people have been fighting beetles.
Yeah.
Beetles are relatively new pests. They just came out 5, 6, 8 years ago. And the last 5 years, you've seen all these ingenious wooden traps. You've seen internal traps, external traps. People at the University of Florida had all these external traps they're putting out in the woods, trying to capture beetles before they got to the hive. They all gave up. Some idiot down in Australia, they're called chucks down in Australia.
I wouldn't call him an idiot.
Pardon?
I wouldn't call him an idiot. I call him lucky.
Well, anyhow, he left his paper towel in the hive, and next thing you know, he captured all these beetles. He published an article in July of American Bee Journal, and there was an article in there about this character from Australia, and he says these chuck things work pretty well, and they don't worry about spilling them, they're dirt cheap, this, that, and the other thing, and suddenly everybody's looking for chucks. Well, there are no chucks in America. So people like I said, found out our own Keith Tigner still heard some information going to state apiaries. He's heard some rumors going around the state about Scotch Brite. So he tries it in his hive. He put in 1 Scotch Brite, 2 beetle traps in the same hive. Captured 200 beetles, which is an incredible number of beetles.
Yeah.
In a week's time, in the traps, the plastic traps that go between the frames, captured 10. So he said, wow, these really work. So he goes back to the store and they're out of them, and he gets the Clorox version. They didn't work at all. Then there's another individual who bought a case of medical wipes. These are something very, very similar for everybody's appearance. He gave them away to a bee club in this area, and this bee club, they all tried them in August. And then in 3 days, they're all outside the hive in a little pile. They just turned around piece by piece by piece. So obviously they didn't work. So there's something unique, but it's going to be, I think it's going to be that's it.
This is going to be it.
I found 9 of them. 9 boxes of them.
Thanks, Paul. All right, if anybody needs any Scotch Brites, his number is...
Actually, there's Dollar Tree store sells something very, very similar for half the price.
Yeah, we ran out of season to find out really if there's anything else that's going to work. So like I said, next spring is going to be interesting to see if there's going to be some other products to work with that. All right, our next one is a wax moth. You've heard a little bit about this guy already. Wax moth sneaks in at night, lays a few eggs, and is out by morning. Eggs hatch, and the larvae damage the comb and the wood. I'll show you a picture of that next. The worms are real large, but they're real fat looking. They're about 1 inch long, have a brown head. Again, just like hive beetles. If you've got a good strong hive, they can keep the moths out, they can keep the larvae down, and when they hatch out, they'll clean them out the hive before this starts. This is the beginnings of it. You'll see these little streaks through your frames, especially more your pollen frames than anything else. They go for the pollen. The larvae love those. So all that's pollen, all these multicolored cells that you see there are full of pollen. And you'll see these streaks with the webs in there, and that's wax moth larvae. And they start really, really small, and they're like this, and then they grow bigger. And then they can totally trash your frame before it's over with nothing but webs and holes and everything else. Just totally mess the whole works up. Doesn't usually drive the bees out of the hive. It just starts really hampering what they can do in the hive because they're shrinking in space and it starts taking over. If you've got this showing up, chances are they're actually doing you if you got this, you ain't got this far, if you're getting to this, they're actually doing you a little favor. They're telling you your hive isn't strong enough. You probably got something else going on. You may have a disease going on. You may have mites going on. They're really probably helping you a little bit because something is keeping that hive down small, light enough or weak enough that they can't keep the moths down. Because a good hive will keep the moths out. You won't have to worry about them. So when you see that, start looking for other things as well. Now, if you give a hive too much space and there's not enough bees, especially when you start your packages, you don't want to stack up 3 boxes on this little 3-pound package of bees. They can't protect it all. What's going to happen is moths will come in. But they haven't got a lot of pollen to search for yet either, so they're not really going to get in there that heavy. But as your hives get older, if your population is a little low and you got too many boxes on there, they can't protect it all. So that's something to watch for. But the main thing is you need to watch for the strength of the bees, and something else may be going on. A frame like this you can take out, stick it in the freezer for 2 days and put it back in the hive. You killed all the larvae and eggs that are on it. And the bees will clean it up and move on. Something like this, it's lost cause, it's gone too far if it's got to that point. So something to watch for on that. They spin cocoons. The cocoons, where the larva goes against it, eats into the wood. That's what they will do to your frames. And your hive bites. In the past, that isn't too bad. I mean, as long as the frame doesn't break in half, you can reuse it. Now that you got hive beetles, what do they love to do? They want little crevices to lay eggs. Wow, they can get away from the bees real easy here. Lay all the eggs they want. So it's more dangerous to reuse this now. If it's not too bad, you could buy some wood putty and fill it in maybe and get by with it. But you just got to be very careful. They're very destructive to the wood.
What about using plastic frames?
Plastic frames don't have any problems with the wax moths damaging. So advantage to plastic. Good response. Thank you. That's very good. There's no chemicals. Okay. There's no chemicals approved to use in the hive for dealing with wax moths. The only thing you can do with dealing in the hive is a strong hive. Barbara mentioned about you take your frames out for storage. If you take your frames out for extracting after you remove the honey. Before you remove the honey, if you don't extract it, I'll just say this real quick. If you pull honey off, if you don't extract that in 2 days, odds are you're going to start seeing what I showed you on the previous screen. You're going to see tunnels start going through it because the eggs are there. Moths go in there almost every night. It's the bees that keep it down if they're strong enough that you don't see a problem. As soon as the bees are taken away, the larvae take off because they start hatching. Extract that honey quick. You're going to have hive beetles hiding in there, and you're going to have wax moth larvae running through it within 2 days. In less than 4 days' time, you've probably lost your honey because it's going to be running out, and if it's hive beetles, it's going to start getting slimy and start fermenting. So don't let your stuff sit around. If you get a stack of boxes like Paul had, you better be running through it quick. Or freeze it first for 2 days. So if you're going to produce comb honey for sale, cut your nice little comb, you see it in your boxes and everything like that. The only FDA way approved of getting rid of the wax moth out of it is freezing for 48 hours. That's all you can do. If you don't, you're going to give it away, they're going to buy it, and they're going to put it on the shelf, and a week later they're going to come back and go like, whoa, you have a mess. So just remember that. So if you take anything off, if you have a dead out, Barbara talked about, you can go store those frames, freeze them first if you can. The only chemical that is approved to use is what I said earlier, Paradichlorobenzene. It's a moth crystal. There's 2 types of moth crystals, naphthalene and Paradichlorobenzene. These are listed in your book. Don't worry about writing it down. I can't spell it anyway. Paradichlorobenzene is the fumigant. You stack your boxes up, you put your crystals on the top, you put a nice tight lid on it, you make sure it's sealed up pretty good. The fumes go down through and kill the larvae and the eggs. You can air it out for 2 days. It absorbs into the wax, so it doesn't hurt anything after you air it. You got to at least air it out for a couple of days before you put it back on the beehive. But that will keep it down. The other thing is freezing. You can freeze it for about 48 hours, stack them up real good, wrap them tight so wax moths can't get back into them to lay eggs, and you can store them pretty good. Once we get cold weather like this, if you've already got the frozen ones and the wax moths are out of them, the moths are not flying anymore now. As long as you keep them closed up pretty good, you're okay until spring. Just be careful how you're storing them once the weather starts warming up to worry about that. There is a good moth section in your book, like I said. It has both of those chemicals in there. You go to the grocery store, Walmart or whatever, you're generally going to see the one that you can't use is naphthalene. But you can sometimes find the other ones in the stores. The bee suppliers have the right one in their catalogs. They don't carry the other one. Any questions on moths before I move on? I know it's a whirlwind, but they cut me short on time. Sorry. The last one is hornets. Not a lot of problem with hornets, but if you got a nest that's close by, and I'm talking about generally the big yellow ones, but any of them, they're carnivores. They like to grab other insects and haul it back to their nests to feed their young. And a slow-flying, heavily loaded, nectar-laden bee and pollen is an easy target coming in for the hive. And a queen's a nice big easy target coming in from her mating flight. So if you've got a nest that's close by, they can impact some damage as far as your quantity of bees. Your best bet is if you can find the nest and locate it, is to destroy it. That's not always easy in either case. The second thing is you can build these traps. If you search this on the internet, you will find all kinds of plans on how to build a trap. They're easy to do. You take a soda bottle, 2-liter soda bottle, cut the top off like you see, kind of make a funnel. Make sure it's sealed up all the way around. You put a bait in there. hornets will fly in, especially with the clear bottle. When they go out there, they'll just go to the sides. They don't figure out where the center is, and they fall down in the bottom. You can, if you know where the nest is or got an idea, and you don't want to put this beside your hive, like Japanese beetles, you don't want to attract them to the hive because they might want the bees more. If you can get an idea of where they are, if you see a lot of hornets flying around your hive, you might want to do something like this. So, all right, I kind of did a whirlwind on this. I want to try to help you with resources. You already heard about this book. Most of the bee associations get this from the Extension Service for resale at cost. I don't remember what the price is, but I think almost all associations get these from the Extension Service.
We sell it for $10.
They're $10. I would suggest you get one because it's nice to have it right there by the hive, and you can look at the picture and say, oh yeah, here's what I got going on. I mean, there's a lot of great information. It's published by the same folks that publish your book. It's a very good book. At worst, you can download it for free from their website. I'd rather have the hard copy with me so I can carry it down to the beehive if I want to look around. But in the meantime, before you decide to buy one, at least you can go online and look at it and read through it and see how good a book it is. So I would suggest you go there. Especially read your book. It's like I said, a very excellent resource. This website is another good resource. It's called beinformed.org. This is a free service that they do. Beekeepers in the entire United States can log on, participate in their annual survey. I do this kind of treatment, I use this kind of chemicals, I do this kind of IPM, this is my results. It all goes in the survey, it gets compiled by region, by state. You can see what people are doing, you can see what people are having success with, you can see what their failures are. How many hives did they lose, how many hives did they not lose? It'll give you a good idea of what works in your area and what may not be working in your area, give you some ideas of what to do to help you manage your problems. Not just the pests, but your diseases as well. And that little book covers diseases as well, not just the pests. It covers all kinds of things. Great website. Once you become a beekeeper, I encourage you to use this. The more data that gets put in, the more tools that we got to deal with. So I would encourage you to do the surveys each year. It comes after spring. They also have a lot of other information on there, and they also offer, I think, a testing service which you can subscribe to. Our extension service also offers a testing. It costs you shipping to deal with that kind of stuff. But great website. I encourage you to please consider to use it. I think everybody here probably knows what Bee Club Barber belongs to. I'm going to say one thing about bee clubs, and I know you've heard it all day long, but I'm going to put in my 2 cents this way. I encourage you to join an association. I don't care which one. I'm not going to state the one. I encourage you to join one for the reason that it's through the associations they are able to support education and research. If you're just attending, you're not helping them support that. By joining it, they can do that support. Education, like today, the Ashland Club donated $300 worth of books to this library last month. A lot of them are hanging on the wall out here if you haven't had a chance to see the display they put up. Great education for everyone around here that's free for people to have access to. The state bee organization, it's only $10 a year if you're already a member of a local to join the state organization. 2 weeks ago at the fall meeting, the members voted to donate $3,000 to 2 projects for an organization that's doing research. It's by joining that happens. So while I know, and all of you know, that the associations would love to have you join them, it's the bees that need you to join. Thank you. Did that go too fast? What did that just do? I'm sorry.
The next to last website.
Next to last? I'm sorry, I hit the button in that. That one?
No, that one.
That one there? If you just search on the title of this, you'll hit that link real easy too. It's not listed in your book. I think this came out after that book was printed. I looked through there real close. Huh?
They moved it, I believe. I think it's in Delaware now.
It may be, but it's the same people that produced it, but it's not in the book. I thought it might have been, but it's not. So, all right.
Thank you, Ron. Let's go ahead and moving talk. Let's take a 5-minute break here. We'll have to push up a little bit. We've got 2 more speakers.